Hello and welcome to a Pokemon Unite boss rush guide for the Zacian Event currently active as of March 2023. Today we're going to be looking at each boss fight for Wave 1 consisting of Drednaw, Regirock, and Zacian herself. This guide will show you each boss mechanic, how to avoid them as best as possible, and how to optimize your damage and stun output against them with specific Pokemon. Let's dive right in. Drednaw. Before we get into the moves, you first want to make sure that your defender or all-rounder that is taking the boss faces the boss away from the group, and your group should try to be spread out behind the boss's general area as much as possible. Each boss's basic attacks have a general area of attack, or cleave, that will hit everyone that's in front of them. Rock Slide is a pretty deadly attack that will track onto 3 players and move with them for a couple of seconds before stopping. Those circles will then rain rocks down while constantly spawning new circles over those 3 moving players every second for about 2 to 4 more additional circles. You can try to squeeze in some attacks for a couple of seconds before moving during his initial Rock Slide cast, but immediately start moving and continue moving till those circles have stopped appearing over you. Failing to move away from your own circle or overlapping circles on top of your group members will cause a lot of overall damage to you and your group. For experienced players that want to maximize damage during Rock Slide, you can do your basic attack once, then move, then basic attack again, and then move again. If you keep basic attacking while moving, you'll cause a lot of movement slowdown, which will end up getting you caught in those circles. Drednaw will then focus his attention to one random player and start casting Hydro Pump, which is a frontal narrow attack that he'll initially cast for 1 second and then push back anyone in that narrow indicator roughly halfway across the map and do considerable damage. Make sure to strafe away from it and not run directly away from it, as it will still most likely hit you. Drednaw's last attack is Body Slam. Drednaw will spawn a decent sized circle inside of him and do a knock up to anyone near him in a circular area, and then spawn one more outer circle outside of the first circle he spawned, which will also knock up anyone in the new outer circle. Make sure the first time you cast Body Slam, you move away just outside of the edge of it, wait for him to use the first Body Slam, and then immediately go back into the boss, pretty much hugging him, to avoid the outer Body Slam. Regirock. This boss is probably the most difficult of the 3, with deadly moves that can combo each other extremely well and can cause a lot of group wipes and overall headaches. For first timers or players doing these boss fights just to clear it, I highly recommend having Slowbro or Trevenant as one of your main defenders and a group of attackers with a high amount of stun contribution like Gardevoir and Espeon. You'll also want at least one healer support or Pokemon with lifesteal like Garchomp, or equip some held items like Shell Bell and Drain Crown that can help keep you well sustained throughout the fight. Regirock will cast Rock Blast, which is a narrow line attack that will target one random player and fire 3 rocks in succession. These will knock back players a fair amount and can also stunlock players caught into it. Oddly enough, the first set of Rock Blasts before Ancient Power will follow the targeted player till it stops and then shoots the rocks. The later set of Rock Blasts will have Regirock just pick a targeted area either north, south, east, or west. Overall, just make sure to start strafing away from it, and if it's following you, try not to blindly attack up with other players. Earthquake is a very straightforward AoE move that will cover the entire field, doing significant damage to your group. This is actually an HP and healing check for your group, as the average player, like an attacker, will lose pretty much half of their max HP during this attack. You'll want to make sure that you're topped off as much as possible, or go quickly grab any citrus berries that you can before he starts the Earthquake. To my knowledge, there is no way of dodging this move at all, and you will just have to hope that your health is well high enough to survive the hit. Ancient Power is one of the most difficult moves to deal with, and can actually slow the game down, at least on the Nintendo Switch version. Regirock will cast this massive attack, knocking back players all the way to the outer edges of the map while doing some minor damage to the group. He will then spawn 4 circles with 2 arrows next to them that will indicate where the Ancient Power rocks will go. These circles will spawn rocks that will rise from the ground and continue to move around in a counterclockwise direction around the entire map. Not only is this attack difficult because of the game's slowdown, but it will also combo with his other moves like Stone Edge and Earth Power that will make it extremely difficult to dodge. If you have a comp of Pokemon that do a lot of stun contribution, or a Slowbro that can use his Unite move, you will be able to actually interrupt Ancient Power and lock him out of using that move again for a while longer. With Slowbro's Unite, you can wait till the very last second of his cast so your group can deal as much damage to him before his next move. Gardevoir and Espeon's Unite moves can also help to apply a lot of stun contribution that can also interrupt Ancient Power if the stun meter is filled during the cast. If your Unite move gives you Unstoppable, you can use this before Ancient Power so you can prevent getting knocked back. Stone Edge will target nearly every player in the group with huge circles that will glow up from the center of each player that will reach the outer edges of their circles to indicate when the attack will explode and do considerable damage to you. This also deals even more damage the more players that happen to be nearby you. You'll want to run out and spread out away from your group members to minimize damage taken overall. Optimally, you can have one of your melee Pokemon like a Defender, All-Rounder, or Speedster stay on Regirock while the rest of your group spreads out around the map. Ranged Pokemon like attackers should always be away and spreading out as a general rule of thumb. Regirock's last attack is Earth Power. This move is a bit similar to Drednaw's Body Slam, but there are a couple of key differences. Earth Power will cover the entire map, and the outer circles that indicate when the rocks will erupt will actually happen in succession of each other, making it difficult to dodge if you're caught up in the outer parts of the map. There are two ways of dodging this. The first way is to stack tight with your group, pretty much hugging the boss as he does not spawn any Earth Power rocks inside of his hitbox. The other way, if you're far away and can't stack on the boss, is to wait until the outer circles hits and then quickly move towards the center with any movement speed abilities or dashes. The final boss? Zacian. This boss is a bit easier to handle compared to Regirock, but she still has some lethal moves you'll need to watch out for. Of all bosses, she will actually require a fair amount of coordination with your group to reduce as much damage taken as possible. Zacian also has a Crown Sword form, which will not only introduce some new moves, but also empower a couple of her regular form of moves during the fight and be even more deadly. Zacian will jump from the center of the room towards the top corner of the map and begin casting Iron Head. This move will mark all players with a number from 1 to 5, and a line of arrows will point from her towards player 1 and until all 5 players have been hit. The arrows from her will follow the marked player anywhere they move till she starts charging towards the player and do heavy damage. Players caught in her line of sight between her and the marked player will also be hit by Iron Head. Either strafe away from the group quickly, or if you're well enough away from the group already, stand still so your group can move away from the arrows. Also try to shorten your line of arrows by walking directly towards Zacian so she doesn't have to go leaping all across the map and reducing your group's damage against her. Zacian will then leap back to the center of the map and use Psycho Cut. Her regular form will throw out 2 sets of 3 Psycho Cut blades that will cover 2 portions of the map like a 90-degree angle. These blades will stay at the outer edges of the map for a considerable amount of time and then return back to her. Anyone caught in their pathing throughout will of course take heavy damage. While we are still on Psycho Cut, we also need to talk about Metal Claw, which will usually follow after Psycho Cut. While the 2 portions of the map are covered by Psycho Cut, Zacian will then choose another angle of the map and charge up a large red indicator and do fatal damage. The best way to dodge both of these attacks is to be close to Zacian, which will allow you to quickly adjust to whichever angle is clear of potential damage. Another way is to be in between the 2 Psycho Cut edges at the diagonal parts of the map, as the blades will not hit you there, but it is pretty thin and not really recommended. This is mostly just in case if you happen to be on the other part of the map. Once Zacian reaches around 69% or lower, Phase 2 will begin as she becomes untargetable and then transform into her Crown Sword form. Immediately, she will then leap over to any of the 4 corners of the room and begin casting Behemoth Blade. This is her ultimate move that will absolutely annihilate or one-shot anyone who is unprotected. To counter this, one of your group members needs to pick up the Aeos shield in the center of the room and then turn it and aim it towards Zacian. This shield replaces your battle item temporarily, and you need to try your best to press your battle item button as soon as she starts swinging her sword, or at 0.5 to 0.3 seconds left of her cast bar. If you time it, congrats! You will have blocked all of Behemoth Blade's damage to you and your group as long as everyone is stacked behind you. If you can't time it, just aiming the shield towards her and covering your group will reduce Behemoth Blade's damage, but it will still hurt a lot overall. And just like Ancient Power, you can also interrupt and lock out Behemoth Blade with Slowbro's Unite or when the stun meter is filled during the cast. This is an optimal way to get some massive damage against her as the Behemoth Blade attack cuts down damage uptime significantly. After that potentially catastrophic move, she will then usually leap to a corner of the map again and use Sacred Sword. This move is similar to Iron Head from before, but with one major difference. Not only does she charge and hit you, she will also mark a frontal cone in front of her and slice anyone in it for an insane amount of damage, if not pretty much one-shotting you. Do your best to strafe away from it as soon as possible, and like with Iron Head, keep it pointed away from your group. This version of Psycho Cut only has her throw 1 set of blades at a time, but she will cover all 4 sections of the map from either north, south, east, or west. And like before, she will usually cast Metal Claw, but this time covering any direction she chooses. The best way to not get hit by these Psycho Cut blades when they return to her is to pay attention to the order of areas that she threw the blades in and keep your character in that general direction as much as possible. If you follow her pattern, she will pull back her set of 3 blades in the same order that she first threw them out. Once she pulls back her first set of triple blades, immediately head to that area so you can avoid the remaining 3 sets of triple blades, but again, be careful of Metal Claw that could cover that area also. During the Psycho Cut, she also could use one of her 2 remaining moves, Brutal Swing and Play Rough. Brutal Swing is a large outer circle move that will swing around her and hit anyone standing in that outer circle. Her inner circle inside her is safe from damage. Simply have your group run towards her and stack. And right after that, she will also use Play Rough, which is pretty much the opposite of Brutal Swing, and the inner circle is now the danger zone. Simply move away from her and be outside that inner circle. And there you have it, every boss from Wave 1 of Zacian's Boss Rush. I hope this guide was helpful, and I sure hope I didn't miss anything important. Feel free to like and subscribe, and I will do my best to continue making these for future waves and future boss rushes. You can also follow me on Twitch at the link in the description, where I usually stream Unite, whether it's ranked or boss rush. For boss rush, anyone is welcome to join me in clearing these bosses, and I can also help out live as much as possible. Thank you so much for watching, and happy boss killing.